For 11.6, we're doing area and circumference of arc and arc lengths of circle. So area and circumference should be review. Arc length will be something a little bit new. So first, the area formula is pi r squared. Circumference, you can use pi times diameter, or you can use 2 pi r. All right. So in the first two questions, it's asking us just to find the circumference and the area of each one of these circles. So first, I'm going to identify my r. My radius is 4. Okay. So to find the area, I'm just plugging that into pi r squared here. So pi times 4 squared, and that would be 16 pi. The directions say leave in terms of pi. We have never really discussed that. So leaving in terms of pi means you don't calculate pi. You just leave it like 16 pi. So that's your area, and we know that we had feet. And we're dealing with area, so you do feet squared. Okay. For circumference, we have our radius, so I'm going to use 2 pi r. So I've got 2 times pi times r. Okay, so I know that 2 times 4 gives me 8 pi. And since we have circumference, you don't put the squared there at the end, you just write feet. Okay, for part B, you're given the entire diameter as 12. So our radius is half of that, which is 6. Diameter is 12. So to find the area, pi r squared, so pi 6 squared, is 36 pi. Okay, and then for the circumference, we have 2 pi r or pi d. Pi d would be pretty simple. We know that d is 12. So pi times 12 is just 12 pi. Whenever you write it, you always write the number first and then the pi symbol. Kind of like variables. You always write the number first and then like the variable x. So this would be 12 pi centimeters. Okay, now for C and D, one thing you need to know is that because it says you're rounding to the nearest tenth and it doesn't say to use the pi button, it doesn't say to use 3.14 for pi, I am going to tell you that for pi, we're going to type in 3.14. Okay? Now, we are also going to identify all of our variables. So, one, we have the area of a parallelogram, which is base times height. Okay, so when you look at the base of this parallelogram, that would be your 9, and your height would be 6. Now, you're given the diameter, so the area of a circle. So you're given the diameter of that circle to be 6, which you know half of that was the radius 3. And then your your area of your circle is pi r squared. So now you have all your variables that you need for solving this. So the area of the parallelogram, base times height, would be 9 times 6. Simply 54. Area of the circle, we have r squared, so 3 squared. And that would be 9 pi. But we're going to make pi 3.14. And this would get us 28.26. Okay, so if you look at the picture, you should see that there is more space of the parallelogram than there is a circle. So you're going to subtract. We're going to say 54, this is the bigger area, minus the 28.26. and that gives us 25.74. It does say round to the nearest tenth, so we're going to go with 25.7 meters squared. Now, I did another example just because it's a lot of stuff. I don't think it's too hard. It's just a lot of stuff. So again, we're using that 3.14. Find all of these measurements. And then we're doing area of the parallelogram, area of the circle. Okay, so our base is 15 and our height is 8. The diameter is also the height of the circle, with 8 being cut in half to be the radius is 4. Alright, so since you know all that information, we can plug in. Okay, so base times height, that's 120. The area of the circle, so the radius squared would be 4 squared. Okay, so I'm going to do 16 and then 3.14 for that pi, and that gives me a total of 50.24. Okay, so lastly, to find the area of the shaded region, I take the 120 minus the 50.24, and that gives me 69.76. Rounding that to the nearest tenth would be 69.8 meters squared. Okay, now for the arc length, which is something new, first of all, you need the formula. So for arc length, I'm just going to say that this is AL. I don't want to use A because A represents area. So for this, to find the arc length, AL, we would say the arc length equals the angle X over 360 times 2 pi r. Okay, so this X is the degree measure of the arc. Now, if you look at the picture, this is a central angle, X. So whatever the central angle is, that is what your arc is. So if that is 30, then this arc is also 30 degrees. Okay, so now, down here in the problem, it says, what is the length of the arcs below? Leave your answer in terms of pi for A through C. So for A through C, we're leaving in terms of pi, in terms of pi. Okay, so we're trying to find the arc length of AB. So think of it like this. If I had a piece of string and I laid it at A and went to B, okay, it's obviously going to be curved. I take that piece of string and I put it next to a ruler and I make it straight. What is that measurement? Okay, so that's going to be like in inches or centimeters or feet. Usually a smaller measurement, but something like that. Okay, that's very measurable with a ruler. But we can't measure it with a ruler when it looks like this. So we use this formula. So we're going to say the arc length equals, okay, this is 45, arc AB, same as the central angle, so that you would go 45 over 360 times 2 pi r is that 12. Okay, now this, we can do a lot of this stuff in our head. So instead of saying arc length, we're going to say the measure of arc AB would be 2 times 12 is 24. So that's 24 pi. You have to understand that that is like it's over 1. So you can multiply the top two numbers here. So 45 times 24 pi over 360. And so if I multiply those together, we get 1080 over 360 times pi. Okay, that pi is definitely not down here, it's really at the top, or you can just write it next to the fraction, because when I divide this, I end up getting a whole number 3. So I find that the measure of arc AB, divide, we get 3 pi. I don't know what measurement they're using, so we're going to use the units. And it's not squared because it's not the area of something, it's just the length of something. Okay, so part B. What are we finding exactly? We're finding arc XY. Okay, so a couple things. We know that that's 90, so this is also 90 degrees. The diameter is 16, so half of that would be 8. And that is your radius. Okay, so let's plug it in. Arc length would equal the measurement 90 over 360 times 2 pi r, r is 8. So 90 over 360 times 2 times 8 is 16 pi. So the next step, you're taking 90 times 16 and getting 1440 divided by 360 times pi. Okay, so we divide this and we get that the measure of arc XY divide is 4 pi inches. Okay, for letter C, we have to find the measure of arc XPY. So that is obviously your larger arc. Hopefully you remember from the circles unit that if you had 3 letters in an arc, it had to be 180 or greater than. So it was either a semicircle at 180 or it was a major arc. This is a major arc. So we can say the arc length is going to be that 240 divided by 360 times 2 pi r. Okay, so that 15 is your r. And that gives you 30 pi. So 240 times that 30 is 7,200 divided by 360. Okay, so now dividing this gives you 20. So the measure of arc XPY is 20 pi centimeters. Okay, for the last one it says find the measure of arc CD. So let's mark that real quick. So I'm finding this part. It says round to the nearest thousandth, use 3.14159 for pi. Okay, that is very important. It defines what you need to do for pi. It also lets us know that we're going to be rounding to the nearest thousandth. Okay. So I don't know that arc length. So what I need to do is say, okay, well, this is supplementary. So 68 plus what equals 180. And I would take 180 minus 68, and that gives me 112. So if that's 112, I would take that and I'm going to divide it by 360 for my arc length. Times 2 pi r. So 2 pi r is 18. Two times 18 is 36 pi. So then we take the 112 times 36, and that gives us 4032 divided by 360 and pi. Okay, now, if I were you, I would divide this first. Okay. So 4032 divided by 360. This gives me that 11.2. It also told us to use that for pi up there. So instead of writing pi, I'm going to write 3.14159. So take that 11.2 times 3.14159. And I get this big number. But rounding to the nearest thousandth. So I'm looking at that 5. That 8 makes the 5 go up to 6. So my arc length of CD is 35.186. And that would be yards.